Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about modern D&D commentary, Dungeons and Dragons and modern D&D commentary, because I am convinced I am on the bleeding edge of it. All right, let's jump into this. So, recently lost my Sunday game. It just blew apart into different pieces. I've spoken about it. If you're curious, just check my past videos over the last week and a half, and I got multiple videos explaining it. So my Sunday game blew apart, right? And now I'm in this period of self-reflection, and I'm thinking, what would cause the Sunday game to blow apart? So I've discussed some of the reasons why I think it blew apart, but here's another reason. I think this channel is another reason, right? So why would a YouTube channel be part of it? Well, it's a good question, and I definitely think it's part of it, and here's why. What I am doing on YouTube with Dungeons and Dragons and with D&D commentary is completely new. It has never been done before, right? So there are other people doing it, right? But the reality is, we're in a new zone. Like, this has not been. So basically, right now, I've landed in a place in my life where I run Dungeons and Dragons on a Sunday night, and unlike every other player in the at the table, when Monday hits, I have a platform to say every single thing I want about the game, and not a small platform, a global platform with people commenting and listening from Europe, from America, from South America. Like, it's not a joke. It's quite literally a global platform. Like, now, and it's not huge. It's like a little less than 2,000 people, right? But it's really unique and different, right? Like, and the thing is, I can say, and this is one of the things I think is, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, right? A few of you are, because you're commentators, but one of the things is, when you become a YouTuber, right? A day in and day out YouTuber, the shape of your, literally, the shape of your communication changes forever. So one of the things is, I can talk to my friends when I talk to my friends, but I also talk to my friends throughout the week, and they all listen, right? Like, and so, and they, they put in their earbuds wherever they're working, or, put in their, like when they're going for a jog, or just sit down and listen. But I don't communicate the way normal people communicate. I say, hey, XYZ, hey, friend X, I'm going to say this to your face, right? And then I'm going to talk to that same person in a comment here, in a comment there, and in a comment here throughout the week, right? And I get to have my say. I can say whatever I want. I'm uninterrupted, and I have a global platform to hear it, right? And that is the bleeding edge of Dungeons and Dragons, the bleeding edge of D&D commentary, and the bleeding edge of friendship. And I have gotten cut, right? So here's the issue. I'm convinced that it is more challenging to have my Dungeons and Dragons game, because everybody at the table, if any dungeon, like, we shared the Dungeon Master slot, right? And if I didn't like what a Dungeon Master said on Sunday, 2,000 people are going to hear it on Monday, right? Like, and the reality is, I had DMs who were subjected to this, who they didn't care. I got one. I call him. He was a force of freedom in our game. He was truly independent, and I don't think he even listened to my channel, right? Like, he's just like, I got a million things to do. I ain't got to listen to your channel, right? And so he was independent, right? There were other people who, basically, they were kind of forces of follow, right? Like, it's just another part of their life. They can't react. But there were epic voices at my table. Like, two other Dungeon Masters who are incredibly epic people and are going to live incredibly epic lives, right? And they don't take hearing harsh words about them lightly, right? And my opinions of Dungeons and Dragons are so strong that this would massively impact my friendships, right? And I think this channel is, without any exception, absolutely part of why the Sunday game blew up, right? Because there were two incredibly epic human beings sitting at my table, Dungeon Masters I think in many ways just as skilled as me, right? And I think in the years to come they will be far better dungeon masters than I ever was, right? But they had to listen to me say things about them to 2,000 other people, even though it was masked. They heard it, and they heard my raw, unfiltered opinion coming through the boom mic of Dungeons and Dragons and the boom mic of YouTube. And I'm telling you, it's hard. It's hard for me. It was hard for them. And I am on the bleeding edge of this, and I have cuts from it, right? The one thing that's surprising is I don't think there are a lot of people in the Dungeons and Dragons commentary world that have the same problem I have. And the reason why is there are extremely few people in the world who think what I think about Dungeons and Dragons. And I can tell you right now, my players did not think the same things I felt about Dungeons and Dragons. Right? They felt they're very different. They thought very different things about Dungeons and Dragons. And so there was this incredible strain of having this person who's incredibly passionate about this thing, and you're like, well, this is just a thing, right? For them, it was just a thing. For me, it was a second world that I live in. Those people who have like a beach house. Like D&D is a beach house for me, man. This is like where I live a large portion of my life. Not all of it, not the most important parts of it, but a big part of it, and certainly second most important part, or third or fourth, depending on how you count, right? And for them, it was just another thing, right? So, and this caused an incredible amount of tension, right? And I was like, oh, Scott, you're so alone. Nobody in the D&D world knows what you're talking about. But I did find people who knew what I was talking about. I've been listening to a lot of YouTube on modern dating. There's a couple people who I would like to see married who are not married, and I'm like, why aren't they married, right? And so I've been listening to Just Pearly Things. That chick is on. She knows what's happening today. I've never heard anybody explain the problem with modern dating the way she does, right? And what I realized when I started listening to this is there are people who are doing exactly what I'm doing with dating. They are dating on Sunday night, and Monday night the world is hearing what happened on that date. And they're on the bleeding edge of dating commentary and have every problem I have with Dungeons and Dragons and commentary and YouTube that I have. They are blowing up relationships because of YouTube. They are savaging people that they're interacting with because of YouTube, and they mask the names, and this is a very real, very powerful thing that is happening, right? And the reality is I'm incredibly now, and do I regret none of it? Absolutely not, right? Like, hey, God put me in this time, right? And he's like, guess what? The rest of the world, when they had a thought, who cared and who heard it? If you weren't wealthy, nobody cared, and ain't nobody gonna listen to you. Nobody gonna listen to you. That ain't the case now. I got a global platform. I have it for free, and I am going to run it until the wheels fall off. That's my humble opinion. Do you think I'm understanding this right? Do you think there's ways I could handle this better? Being on the bleeding edge of D&D commentary, being on the bleeding edge of friendship, and being on the bleeding edge of being a YouTuber? Or do you think I'm just doing the best I can in the time that is here? I'd love to hear what I'm doing wrong. If you're willing, I'd love to hear if I'm doing anything right. Are you down this rabbit hole too? Are you in this space? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Oh, and I'll throw this in. As I go forward and I continue to try to craft, you know what? I ain't going to say it. It's already out. I will sacrifice friends for D&D. That's just a fact. And I just need to realize that, right? If people come into my life and it becomes a conflict between D&D and that friend, I already know the answer. And I think it's foolish to lie to myself or lie to anyone else, right? So I'm just going to try to be upfront about it going forward. All that's my humble opinion. I'm eager to hear your humble opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking, or even unhumble opinion. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.